The Britney Spears autobiography was released a few days ago and I listened to it on one day on Audible, and today I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on the book. If you've read it, you can let me know your thoughts in the comments. I only found out this book was coming out a few days before it was released because it was all over TikTok and people were saying that Justin Timberlake was about to be the most hated man in the world, and I thought, well, they split up decades ago, how bad can it be? And actually, before I get more into it, in this video I'm going to be speaking about abortion and other related subjects, just in case that's a trigger for you. So all over TikTok people have been saying that Justin's career is about to come to an end, and there was quotes all over the internet and leaked paragraphs for this book, and it just looked as if it was going to be really interesting. Now, some of the things included stories about her having sex with Justin and him having a small penis, and all these other quotes, and I thought, surely to God she's not wrote that in her book, right? Actually, she's not wrote it in her book. So either this was a really clever marketing strategy from her company, or it was just people who wanted a lot of likes online, because 90% of the things that I seen that was going to be in the book isn't in it. With that being said, the book was still really interesting, and I'm going to cover a few key points in the book and tell you my opinion. Even with me doing this, I feel like if you're interested in reading the book, you still should. I don't think that I'm going to cover too much that it's going to waste the full thing for you. The book opens by talking about Britney's childhood and how she became a star. She talks about how her father was an abusive alcoholic, as we see this time and time again with child stars, and this really reminded me a lot of Nick Carter's childhood as well. She talks about how she was signed up and how she used singing and dancing as an escape from her family life. As an adult, I've seen this so many times. I remember watching the Disney Channel when I was young and thinking, oh my God, they get to work with their friends, they get to have fun, they get to sing and dance and wear cool outfits and travel the world and go to award shows and meet all these famous people like the Backstreet Boys, and their lives must be amazing. But as we get older and we find out what was actually going on behind the scenes, a lot of these people were abused and had alcoholic families, and they were just using them for their money. Like even the boys from The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, like their mum was just using them and just overworking them. And it's actually really sad, because not only were their families harassing them and forcing them to work, but they were also having to do all this work, do all this recording, singing and dancing and all these rehearsals, and then plus go to school. And it must have been so stressful. And I know that a lot of people will say, but look at where they are now. They're living in mansions now. They can buy whatever they want now. They don't have to work because they're millionaires. And as I'm always saying, money isn't everything. Yeah, okay, maybe they've got enough money that they could retire if they wanted and they don't have to do a 9-to-5 job, but they're still stuck with that childhood trauma. As most people know, Britney Spears was in the Mickey Mouse Club along with Christina Aguilera, Justin Timberlake, Ryan Gosling and a whole host of other big celebrities now. When she was signed by the label, they wanted her and Justin to look as if they were pure and innocent and convinced them to wear purity bands. Now, this wasn't something that was just exclusive to music labels. The Disney Channel people used to wear them all the time. You used to see them wearing purity rings, like the Jonas Brothers. They used to wear purity rings and we found out that they're going about having sex with everybody. But it was just to make people seem as if they were innocent, so that kids were supposed to look at them and think, oh, I want to be like them. But as we know, that's not how it works. Britney said that she lost her virginity when she was 15, but she went along with wearing this purity band because the label told her to. Now, obviously back in the day you didn't have the internet and social media and stuff the way you do now. If somebody said that to a star now, somebody would be right on Facebook saying, oh, I went with her when she was 15, I seen her, she went with my pal or whatever. So back then, you could lie, and you probably weren't going to get caught until years later. Britney met Justin in the Mickey Mouse Club, and she said she was absolutely infatuated with him. She was so in love with him, she would have done anything for him. And they were literally like the prince and princess of pop. Everybody thought that they were going to be together forever and get married. So she says that she fell pregnant when she was quite young. I think she might have been 19. And she said that she wanted to keep the baby, but he wasn't ready to be a parent. So her and her assistant, they got the tablets and they took them back to her house. She didn't go to a hospital. Now, as somebody who does not know anything about these things, I didn't even know that you did it by taking a tablet, so this was an education to me. I've never been in this predicament in my life. But she says that she took the tablets and she was in so much pain She was like on the floor screaming in pain, and they still wouldn't take her to the hospital because they didn't want the press to find out. And she was saying that she did this because she didn't want to force Justin into being a father because he says he wasn't ready, or that he just didn't want to be a dad. So she was on the ground literally screaming in pain, and she said that Justin came in and thought that listening to music would make her feel better. I was listening to this and I thought, is this for real, right? Like, I still can't wrap my head around it. I know that he was young, but even then I'm like, are you being serious? So she was lying on the ground in pain, screaming in pain, and he came in and lay on the bathroom floor with her, and he started like strumming his guitar, and I thought, no, absolutely not. I've never had a baby, right? But when I see people giving birth and the men are holding their hands and like, it's okay, just breathe, you'd be like that. How do you know it's okay? You're not squeezing a life out of you. You don't know how this feels. You don't comprehend this pain, right? So I would imagine that she is in this much pain and he's lying on the floor strumming a guitar. No fucking way. I can just imagine the rage that would come over me. I swear to God, I would take that guitar off him and I'd smash fuck out it. I'd end up shoving it somewhere and he would never be getting it back out. That's all I'm saying. Like, when I'm in pain, okay, maybe hold my hand, maybe hug me, maybe hold my stomach, like do something, but do not lie on the floor and strum a guitar to me, because it's not going to end well for you. So this is something that's obviously affected her entire life, and as we know now, she wrote the song Every Time, and it was dedicated to that moment. So people online are saying, oh my God, Justin Timberlake is evil because he wanted her to get rid of this baby. He's going to get cancelled. Nobody's ever going to buy his records again. And I will say that I highly disagree, because think of all the men in the world, millions and millions of men. I'm only talking about actually the Western society here, because I don't really know much about what happens in other parts of the world. But in Western society, when a woman gets pregnant, it is solely up to her if she has the child or not. Unless you live in America, then you're just forced to have it no matter what. But here in the UK, you've actually got a choice. The man does not have a choice whatsoever. If a man says, I'm not ready to be a father, like I don't ever want to be a dad, it's down to the woman and that's it. That man's paying child support for the rest of his life. And honestly, I don't agree with that. I think that, this is a bit off topic, but I think that if a woman gets pregnant and a man says, look, I don't want to be a dad, I don't want to have anything to do with the child, they should have to sign something to say that they're never going to see the child and they're never going to pay child support, and then the woman can make the decision for there. But there's so many people, men, that are forced into parenthood. So in this situation, Britney decided to get rid of the baby because Justin didn't want to be a dad. He didn't tie her down, he didn't force her into it. She said that he didn't want to do it, and then she loved him so much that she went along with it. And that was a decision that she made. During her relationship with Justin, it was well known that he was cheating on her with all these different people. Nicole Appleton was one person he mentioned, and she said there was somebody else who's a celebrity who's married with kids now, and she didn't want to mention their names. But apparently he was going with dancers, he was going with fans, he was going with everybody, and she knew about it, but she didn't say anything because she just loved him so much. Then in the relationship, she went with one other person and she told him about it. So eventually Justin split up with her and she was devastated, right? And I have been this devastated, like the way she describes, like so devastation where you physically cannot breathe, right? So she was devastated. She went back to her house, like she just couldn't do anything. She didn't want to talk to anybody. She was devastated. And then eventually he wrote her a letter saying that he couldn't breathe without her and that he wanted her back. But they ended up not getting back. Obviously you're not going to want to get back with somebody who's been sleeping with everybody behind your back. That's going to do you more harm than good. So she talks about all these different relationships that she was in throughout the years, and when she met Colin Farrell, and sometimes she just wanted to go out and have fun, like most young people do. Obviously throughout the book she's talking about different awards, different videos and different shows and tours and things that she done, but I'm just talking about the main points here. So eventually she ends up meeting Kevin Federline and she has his kids. So when she was describing the relationship with Kevin, she was saying that it started off really well and she had a child, and then literally like a year apart she had another baby, and she was really excited to have kids close together. but then he started to like fall away from her and not spend time with her. Now there's a lot of things in this book that happened that didn't make sense to me, and I'll tell you and you can tell me what you think. Now I'm not saying that she's a liar at all, but there's two sides to every story, and also the end of the book left me with some questions as well. So when she met Kevin and she had his 2 children and he ditched her, he didn't want to speak to her, and she said that she kept trying to see him and he was saying, no, I don't want to see her, I don't want to see her, and he was away trying to become a rapper and he was going out to clubs, and then when he was talking to her he was saying, oh, I was out at a club, Christina Aguilera was there, Justin was there, like this is amazing. And she was annoyed because she was like, I've been to all these places, I've been to like more clubs than you'll ever go to in your life probably, and he's coming in thinking that he's all that, and he wasn't spending any time with his kids, and she was just looking after them all the time. And obviously, if you remember back then, anytime she ever left the house, the paparazzi were all over her. And personally, I think that the paparazzi should be banned. I think that it's an absolute disgrace. I don't know why they're allowed to hound people to the degree that they are. I mean, they've actually killed people. So poor Britney, she's got these 2 kids, and she's really protective, and she's trying to like hide them from the paparazzi, and people are saying she's let herself go because she's put weight on, even though she's just popped 2 kids out, right? And they're saying all these bad things about her. Meanwhile, Kevin's out partying, like the way like men get away with everything in Western society, actually all over the world. Men are going to get away with most things. Even when you see celebrities getting interviewed, like actresses, they always say, how do you balance being a singer or being on tour and having kids? But they never ask men that. Or they say, oh, you're coming up for 35, when do you plan on having kids? But they never ask men that. So this was obviously the situation with Britney. It was like, oh, she's expected to have an amazing body, look after kids, have a singing career, and meanwhile he's just out getting drunk with his pals. The usual. When Kevin and Britney split up, he put in for full custody of the kids, and he says that she wasn't fit to look after them. Now this is where it gets a little bit confusing to me, because if she had the kids all the time and he never got to see them, did he put in for full custody just so that he could get child support? Because as we know, he gets £40,000 a month for her, and I don't know if that's per child or if it's in total, but he obviously gets child support. But at the time, she says that he wasn't seeing them at all, so why would he put in for full custody? Not only that, she explained a few times that she tried to get in to see him when he was doing video shoots or interviews or whatever, and the security team were like, no, he doesn't want to see you, no, you can't see him, and all that. But she said that all his new security team used to work for her. That doesn't make sense to me, because she had more money than he did, and if they worked for her for years, then why would they all switch and work with him for no reason? That doesn't make any sense to me. Like, if I was working with somebody and I knew that people were saying, oh, they're not fit to be a mother or whatever, then I wouldn't go with that other person who's telling lies. Something just doesn't add up about that bit of the story. Britney's team and people in charge advised her that she should be the one that puts in for a divorce because it would be less embarrassing. But then it turned out that because she filed for divorce, she was the one that had to pay for both lawyers. I feel like she should have looked a wee bit more into that, but she's obviously trusting the people that's giving her advice. Once they divorced, Kevin would let Britney see the kids, only for short periods of time. So at one point they came to pick up the kids, and she was scared that Kevin was going to take them away and not let her see them again. So she took one of the kids into the bathroom, and she was trying to like just stay in the bathroom room, and somebody shouted through the door like, it's okay, they're just going to wait for you. And then the next minute the police came in and kicked the door in and took the rain off her, and she was obviously being manipulated all over the place. But at this point as well, she just wanted to see her children, and anytime she went out the house, the paparazzi were following her, the press were saying she was a bad mum, Kevin was trying to stop her from seeing her kids, nothing was working in her favour. And then eventually one day she went outside and she thought, I'm sick of being told what to do, I'm sick of everybody controlling my life, I'm sick of everybody wanting me to be a performing doll. And she shaved her head. Like, I fuck you to everybody, to say like, I'm not going to do everything that you want me to do, I've got my own life. But she said that everybody was saying that she was heavily drinking and that she was taking drugs, but she says she was taking Adderall at the time. But she was obviously having a really hard time, and I even remember at the time, I was quite young, but I remember watching it at the time, and every time you seen pictures of her out with her kids and she was like trying to hide them and stuff, and I was like, obviously you'd be doing that, like paparazzi should not be allowed to take photos of children. I don't know how they get away with it. Literally, it's like swarms of pedos around taking pictures of kids. It's completely unacceptable. Eventually she was taken away and she was told that she was going to get put into a conservatorship with her family. And when she was talking about this conservatorship, like I totally believe what she's saying here. There's not one doubt in my mind that she's telling the truth. But she says that when she went back to her house, her dad had cleared out all her room and made an office. And he says to her, oh, I'm Britney Spears now. And he took charge of her entire life, told her everything that she had to do, when she had to perform, kept telling her that she was fat, she had to lose weight, how she could dress, what songs she could perform. And it was actually so sad. And when you watch her performances back then, you can really see that she wasn't happy. And I don't think it was anything to do with drugs and alcohol, to be honest. You can tell that she's just had her whole life drained out of her, and she's just there doing what she's been told to do. One of the things in the book that infuriated me the most, other than the conservatorship and Justin strumming his stupid guitar on the bathroom floor, was when she was forced to perform at the 2007 VMA Awards. I watched this, and I remember it specifically. I remember she was on stage. She had 2 kids at this point, and she had on like a black bikini, like a black sparkly bikini. And the performance wasn't great. She even says in the book, like, this performance wasn't great, but I didn't want to be there, I just wanted to go home. So she performed, and I thought, she's looking good, right? Maybe the miming wasn't great, maybe the dancing wasn't all that, but, I mean, we all have off days. But I remember all over the press, all over the news, everywhere, people were saying that Britney Spears has let herself go because she's fat. Fat. Literally, she was like a size 10. And I thought to myself, is this the standards that everybody needs to live to? Not only is she probably get a dietitian, right, or probably being starved like the way most celebrities were back then, like Claire for Steps, she was literally being starved. So was Kesha. She was forced into like having an eating disorder at one point. So you're thinking, maybe she's not even allowed to eat. She'll probably have a personal trainer. She's up there, she's dancing constantly. She's exercising all day, basically. And you're saying that she's fat. What chance has a normal person got? But what was even more infuriating than that was when, and I can remember this vividly, and it annoys me even more now than it did then, but Sarah Silverman, the comedian, stood up to roast Britney. And she was saying that everything that she's done that's worthwhile in her career up to now has been done, and that her kids are the 2 cutest mistakes she'll ever see. And I remember at the time thinking, that's not funny. Like, when you have a roast, like when you actually have a roast and you invite people, you know, and you sit there and let your family come and roast you, and sometimes they do take it a bit too far, but that's what you signed up for. Britney was in the back taking a mental breakdown because she was forced to perform at this award show. Her ex-boyfriend was there, all her rivals were there, and she's forced to get up there and perform when she's got postnatal depression. She doesn't feel like she looks good. Her dad keeps telling her she's fat, and she's through the back absolutely crying her heart out, and Sarah Silverman, the bitch, is standing up saying that her kids are a mistake. Honest to God, right? She said in the book that she didn't know that she'd said that at the time. I don't know how she kept her composure, because as somebody who doesn't even really like kids that much, see if somebody said that about my weddings as a joke, I'd leather them, like no joke. There must be so many times that Britney's seen her on the red carpet or seen her somewhere, and people already thought that Britney was crazy, right? But she did explain in the book that she went along with a lot of the conservatorship so that she would get to see her kids, and that's possibly why she didn't just grab Sarah Silverman and fuck her right off the stage head first. But I wouldn't be able to contain my anger if somebody done that. And years later, Sarah Silverman's like, oh, it was a joke, you know what comedy was like back then? And it's like, do you know what? No, it's not an excuse. It's not an excuse to get up on a stage and bully somebody. Like, literally bully somebody. I've never really thought she was funny anyway, but she's just an absolute fucking disgrace. So I was telling my friend about this yesterday, and she was telling me other things that she says about, like, Palestine and Israel and that. And I don't really know that much about that, to be honest, but my friend wasn't impressed whatsoever. So every time I see Sarah Silverman now, I'll just be like that, actually fuck off. While Britney was in the conservatorship, she did not have a life. She was just constantly working, she didn't have any breaks, and then she had to do the Vegas show, and she explained that by that time she kept saying, let me perform new songs, let me do new dances, let me mix up the routine, and she was having all her artistic freedom taken away from her. So then when it was time to get up on stage, she was just like a robot, she was just going through the same thing constantly. Now you know what it's like to have a regular job, I presume, and when I go into work, some of the things are a bit different, but then at the end of the day it's the same thing, and you go into autopilot and you've got no interest in it whatsoever. Now imagine having to do hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of shows, even if it's something that you love doing, but you can't change anything up, you can't remix your own songs, you can't change any of the dances, you can't do anything, and it would be absolutely monotonous. Like when Celine Dion was in Vegas, she changed her show all the time. She got to change, even like change her outfits, do anything, but Britney had no say over it whatsoever. So when it was talking about her dad, like basically spending all her money, her family just using her for her money, her sister just using her sister basically getting away with everything, because she tried to give her sister a good life and she bought her family a house, and her sister was just like, oh, why is she buying us a house, right? And she sticks up for her sister. She's like, she didn't know what it was like growing up when I was young. Her life's been different, blah, 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 as people always like stick up for people. But she really didn't have a choice to do anything. And the more she was talking about it, I thought, how was this allowed to go on? Like, why did nobody ever stand up for her? She was told that she wasn't allowed to employ her own lawyer. She had to use her dad's lawyer. She was paying all these people that didn't even do anything. She was paying them like thousands and thousands every month, basically for doing nothing, and it was absolutely shocking. And I get that when somebody gets put into a conservatorship, it's because they're not in control of their mind, so maybe they're not in control of their spending. But as she said in the book, how can she be trusted to go to award shows, to go and perform every night, to do all these different things on TV and do interviews, but she's not sound of mind and she can't take control of her own assets? And then if a judge or somebody with a brain who actually looked to see what expenses her family were spending, then they should have all have went to jail. Nobody had their best interests at heart. Now, I'm not saying that Britney Spears is completely all there, right? Because the more the book goes on, I do start to question it a little bit. But somebody should have been there for her, and it's an absolute shame. Britney did mention a few times in the book that there was times when she had postnatal depression or different things wrong with her, and she acted like a total psycho bitch. And listen, we've all been there, right? She was like really fussy over getting her house done up, and she went crazy at contractors because she wanted a white marble floor, but she was just wanting the best for her kids. And I've seen the most level-headed people go nuts over the craziest stuff, so we can't be too judgmental there. So eventually her and all the dancers were going over the moves for a new routine, and they wanted her to do something that looked quite difficult. And she said in the book, I was getting older, I wasn't going to be able to do this. Like, they wanted me to do stuff that she could do when she was like 17. And she says everything was going well and she was getting on with the dancers and all that. And then the next thing, they came out and says that they wanted to speak to her, and they told her that she had to go into a facility. Now, this isn't the first time she gets put into a facility in this book, but this time they put her away and they lock her up, and she thinks that her family are actually trying to kill her. Now, that might sound crazy, but if you look into the conspiracy theories about Chester Bennington, then anything's possible. But at this point, I did start to question some of the things that she was saying in the book. So she was saying that she was in this facility and she had to go to meetings every single day, and she wasn't really allowed to do anything. She couldn't dance, she couldn't do anything, so she was just sitting on this chair and she was putting weight on, and she was depressed. Like, she was watching people out the window coming and going for this facility, and it was depressing her even more because she was thinking, why are they allowed to go about their day-to-day life and I'm not? So she said that while she was in there, one of the nurses showed her a video online, and it was the Free Britney movement, and people were saying Britney's been held against her will, like there's something not right about Britney, she's doing all these weird things, like there's something not right here. And she says that she was really touched when she found out about this, and that her fans were understanding how she was feeling, because she says in the book that she's an empath, and she was like, my fans out there, they can see that there's something wrong with me. So what I didn't understand about this is that when the Free Britney movement came about, she was posting videos on Instagram and TikTok and stuff, and people were writing, if you're in trouble, wear a red top, or do this certain dance or play this certain song, and then she was doing it and people were saying this is a cry for help. And at one point she had a hat, and when you zoomed into the hat, it said like help me or something, and she didn't mention any of that in the book. So I don't really understand where that fits in, because that did happen, we all seen it. But she says that she found out about the Free Britney movement from this nurse, but if she was posting on Instagram and stuff at the time, then how come she couldn't see the comments? That was the bit that was most confusing to me. So eventually she ends up getting a new lawyer. She finds out that she can get a lawyer, ends up getting out of this conservatorship, which is obviously amazing because her family are actual nutcases. Every single person, and I'm not joking, the family, the lawyer, the judge, everybody should be investigated and they should go to jail because it's absolutely shocking. But she eventually gets out of this conservatorship. So all the way through this book, this is where I get confused again. She's saying her kids mean the most to her, her kids mean the world to her, she loves her kids so much. She spent the whole time praying to God, like she knows that if she prays hard enough, like she can manifest her way out of this situation, and God's there for her and all that. Like she talks about this the whole way through the book, and that's fine, right? So by the end of the book, she's talking about her new husband, and she's talking about when she fell pregnant again, and she had told the whole world that she was pregnant, and then not that far into the pregnancy she ended up losing the baby, and then she had to announce to the whole world that she'd lost the baby. Now she's obviously been through a lot in her life to do with abortion, having kids and having them took away from her and all that. So this is obviously a devastating thing to happen, right? But when the book ended, she was still married to this guy. But since the book has been released, she's came out several times and she said that her kids just use her for money. Her kids are only interested in seeing her when she's taking them on holidays or buying them presents or giving them the most expensive things. And while that might be true, it's completely different for the story that she's telling in this book. Now, that still might be true and she still might love her kids unconditionally, but the way she's talking about it doesn't seem to add up. Another thing that she said recently is that she's an atheist, and if God was real, he wouldn't have let her family do to her what they did. That's perfectly understandable, right? She's went through a traumatic experience. She was under control by her family for 13 years of her life, spending all her money and telling her what to do and starving her basically. But to go through that whole book and say that God is everything, like God, if it wasn't for God she wouldn't have got through it. She did everything for her kids, and if it wasn't for her kids she wouldn't have got through it. To now say that she doesn't believe in God and that her kids just use her for money. And obviously one of her kids is coming up for 18 now, so she's not going to be paying Kevin the child support anymore. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't add up. One thing that did make sense was that she talked about when she was posting naked pictures on Instagram, and she says that when she spent all those years of her life being told what to wear, what to eat, like being completely controlled, like when she was locked up in one of the centres, they watched her getting dressed, they watched her in the bath, they watched her sleep, like she wasn't allowed to do anything, like even if she was naked they were still watching her, and she felt like she was just being violated her entire life. So it's understandable that she would want to take the power back, and she decided to pose naked on Instagram. Now, the only thing that I would say about that, and I'm not a prude whatsoever, if you want to show off your body, 100% show it off. And in a toxic video, you pretty much see her naked anyway, she's just got crystals on her. But when people decide to post naked pictures, I wish they would not do it on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, like all these places, because you need to be 13 to have an account, and 13 is still really young, and as we know, kids are on TikTok, Instagram and all that all the time, and I've seen really young kids on it. Now they're going to be exposed to nudity on TV and on the internet anyway, but it's just not something that I would advise celebrities to do. And as for Twitter, don't even get me started. I have seen full action on there, full on action. I don't think they've got any restrictions when it comes to these things, so I don't understand why 13-year-olds are allowed to have an account. it makes absolutely no sense to me. Even if it was 16, right, they might have put it up to 16. The things that's on Twitter, or X as it's now called, is full. You see everything, absolutely everything. It makes no sense to me. The world is absolutely hoaching with pedos. So Britney Spears was obviously trying to take her power back, and she was like posting nude photos and stuff. And that's fair enough, but I mean, start an OnlyFans or something, you know, do it in an appropriate place. I'm sure if Britney Spears started an OnlyFans, she would never have to get up on stage again. So overall, I think the book was really interesting. It was only 5.5 hours long on Audible. The reason I listened to it on Audible is because I don't want to sit and read a book. I can't be bothered taking it in. It takes me absolutely ages to read anyway because I'm dyslexic, and I don't always take it in. I get distracted. When I'm listening to it on Audible, I can also play my Speedstorm game, do my skincare, like do whatever else I need to do, make my dinner, whatever. And it's just easier that way. On Audible, I'm subscribed, so it only cost me 1 credit. But to buy it, I think it's £11.50. And the book, I believe, is like £13. I really think it's worth the money if you're interested in autobiographies. So once I finished the book, I came to the conclusion that Britney Spears isn't mentally stable, but is anybody. Considering everything that she's been through in her life, being controlled by the label, being told that she had to be sweet and innocent, and then the next minute she had to be sexy. She was getting interviewed when she was a child, and the presenters, like old men in their 40s and 50s, were saying, oh, do you have a boob job, and talking about her body. Like, this is the things that they did in the early 2000s. You wouldn't get away with doing that now. But as we know, Hollywood is absolutely hoaching with pedos. The record labels are probably the worst for it. Not to mention the fact that her family took over her entire life, spent all her money, she had no freedom, they told her she was fat, she was like a performing bloody well robot. And I think that she did well to get through all these years and only shaved her head. Because if somebody took my kids and some bitch comedian got up and says my kids were a mistake, shaving my head would have been the least of their worries. I would have waited until they were all sleeping and just like, goodbye house. It'd have been a pile of ashes. And they'd have all have been in it. Now I'll probably get in trouble for saying that because you're not allowed to say anything online these days. But that's what I would have done. So okay, she shaved her head, okay, she took a mental breakdown, but she did amazing to get through it all. And as for Justin Timberlake, I don't think that he should be cancelled for making a decision when he was a young man that he didn't want to be a dad. Like, I'm nearly 40 and I don't want to be a mum, and damn right nobody would be forcing me to become one. The worst thing that he did in that book was cheated on her and then made her out to be the bad one. Like when he brought out the Cry Me a River video and he made out as if she was the one that broke his heart and everybody turned against her. And then lay on the floor playing a guitar while somebody's in extreme pain. But I mean, obviously he was a young boy and he was a complete fanny. But let me know in the comments if you read the book or if you're planning on reading it and what you thought. And if you liked this video, I don't know how long it's going to be. If you've got to the end, congratulations. This is a very long video. If you made it to the end, give me a thumbs up in the comments. You're a dedicated watcher. But if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. Bye.